The grist then gets scooped up by this bucket elevator, and it goes all the way to the top red tank. You can clearly see that it cycles back around to pick up some more there. So once we get one batch in that red tank, we will know when we have a batch because that red tank is scaled. So we're going to weigh it. Once we get a batch, we just let it flow right down into the second tank. That's called the mash tun. That's spelled T-U-N. And that's full of hot water. It's not boiling, but it's super hot. And that's how we're gonna steep it like tea, and we're gonna pull out the sugar, we're gonna get the color, we're gonna get the flavor of that color. After about 30 minutes up there, we're gonna drop that liquid right down here into the brew kettle. And we give all of that spent grain away to dairy farmers, and they feed lots of different kinds of animals with it. So we're very happy about that.
Recycling, basically.
It's totally, we used to have a farm, they would come pick it up and they fed it to dairy cows, and then they sold us the cheese. That was a really cool cycle. And then Washington State decided they were going to raid raw cheese farms, so the farm got raided. And it made us all super angry. But anyway, we're not going to talk about that.
Another subject.
I think I'd rather be angry about that in these days and times.
Yeah.
Those were the good old days when you were angry about raw cheese, you know. I'd like to return to that. But anyway. So now down here in the brew kettle, we have that liquid, the wort, W-O-R-T, and this is where we boil. We're going to bring this up to a big rolling boil, and we begin to add the hops. We add hops for bittering, we add hops for aroma, and we add hops for flavor. Now we've got our wort that we're going to ferment downstairs, so if there are no more questions here, we can go down and see where the wort goes. Yes?
How about cross-contamination and flavor? I mean, how do you get all the flavor out of the one that you brewed before you do the next?
So this is just one beer.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So it's as soon as we get all of that liquid in here with all the hops and everything, we drop this downstairs. We spin out the hops. We put it through a heat exchanger, and it goes into the fermenter. And then we start the next brew.
Okay.
Cool. So let me clean up after myself here. Whatever this recipe is, I don't know what that would take. Probably a dark beer. Anytime that's in there, you know. So let's go downstairs. We're going to follow our wort and see how it becomes alcohol.
Cool.
Come on down. Not too many. Use your spit. This is extremely dry, so I could probably maybe manage one of you for the Heimlich maneuver, and someone else would have to take over. Go online and look at because I didn't have a box at my house. But
surprise.
But the first ingredient of grape nuts is malted barley. Malted barley. Yeah, that's crazy. But nonetheless, so this is specialty malt. You want to try the specialty malt? It's different. And see if because it doesn't look that different, does it? But see if it is, or taste if it is. A little bit different?
Sweeter?
Or whatever you think it is. There's two grain hoppers here. When they're ready, all of the grain comes out of here. It flows. It's actually pulled along by this auger here. And it goes behind this wall into the mill. That's where it gets cracked. That's where it gets scooped up. It goes to the top through the system here. You see this number 1602 that's in that little readout. That is the scale readout. So right now up in that red tank we have 1,602 pounds of grist. And that white bag right there, right now it's unopened. I can see the bottom of it. It's completely full. That is 1,500 pounds. So that's a pretty good visual aid. It takes about that much barley, total recipe, to brew one batch of beer, which is about 900 gallons. This is we call this a 30-barrel system. So, and this is a half barrel. So about 60 kegs worth of beer are up there in that. And remember, we've got the water. It's also the essence of the barley, not the actual barley. And it is the actual hops that we have all boiling in that kettle. So we're going to go around the corner and see how that becomes alcohol. These tanks, these are our fermenters. So one of these tanks will contain the last ingredient that we haven't added yet. Does anyone remember what that might be? The hops are in the wort.
I don't know.
Water's in the wort.
Beer.
Yes! Nailed it! So the other, yeah, your two options are, you thought about it, you thought about it. So the water, the malted barley, and the hops are in the boil. But now we have 25 gallons of liquid yeast. This is 15 gallons. So 25 gallons of liquid yeast will be in that tank. It's really sitting on the bottom of that cone shape. It is cold and dormant. Our wort is boiling, and it has all those hops in it. So we have to do two things to that wort before we introduce it to the yeast. We're going to remove the hops, and we're going to put all of that wort through a heat exchanger, and that drops the temperature down to 71 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about 20 degrees centigrade, and it really is just warm. We are an ale brewery, and our yeast works at a warm temperature range. That means it lives and takes in sugar and does its life purposes at a warm temperature range. If we were brewing lagers, we would have to drop that temperature down to nearly 40 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 5 degrees centigrade. Really big temperature difference between lager yeast and ale yeast. So nonetheless, we are a warm fermenting brewery. So now we have the perfect wort. It's at 71 degrees. It has been clarified. The hops have been taken out, and it's got all that sugar in it that came from the malted barley. That wort goes into that yeast. The yeast warms up to that temperature, and when the yeast gets to 71 degrees, the yeast comes alive, and it begins to realize that it is living in a warm bath of food. So it just starts to absorb this sugar right through its little cell wall. And it's taking in all those simple sugars. And as soon as it removes all of those simple sugars from that wort, we have our alcohol content. At that point, we have captured all of that alcohol, but we do not capture the CO2 that comes from that yeast. And there's a lot of CO2 that comes out of that yeast. So much, in fact, that it would reach dangerous levels if we closed that tank off. So we vent almost all of the CO2 that comes off that yeast. We just let it go right. Actually, it rolls along the floor. CO2 is heavier than air, and it just rolls along the floor in here. So at the end of fermentation, you've pretty much got a flat beer, even though the yeast has produced so much CO2. Nonetheless, we are moving now into the next phase of brewing, which is called conditioning. In order to get to the conditioning phase, we are going to drop the temperature on that tank dramatically, and it's called crashing. We're going to crash the temperature on that tank to a 0.5 degree Fahrenheit above freezing. We are not messing up. We are going to crash that temperature. The yeast doesn't like being that cold, so the yeast kind of stick together. They kind of come together in big kind of globs, and that makes them big and heavy. And whereas they have been kind of cycling around in the warm tank, now when it gets that cold, they drop right out of the beer and back down to the bottom of that cone shape. So that act of those yeast falling down to the bottom of the tank is called something. It's called flocculation. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. There's a new Scrabble word for you guys. So if you have flocculating yeast, you can get a bright beer without even filtering, because the yeast really fall out nearly completely. Nonetheless, once the yeast have flocculated, they're down at the bottom of that cone shape, and then you've got beer above. We're going to leave that tank just like that for 1 week, and that is the aging step. That is the step when the beer actually changes flavor, and it's just objectively better. It's just more delicious. Everybody conditions their beer. You have to do it. I do believe Budweiser conditions their beer, and they wouldn't if they didn't have to. And it just gets more delicious.
So the longer they leave it in there after a week, more flavor?
Nope.
Okay.
There's a point of diminishing returns. So we generally, most of our beers that are between about 5 and 7% alcohol stay in there about a week, and they come to a round flavor. We'll just call it that. There are other things. So the yeast is the thing that's doing this. The yeast is actually acting upon the flavors in the beer, so about a week is correct for most of our beers. However, if the beers are higher in alcohol, that means you've added way more malt to the recipe, and the fermentation is going to be longer because if we use the same amount of yeast, we just ferment it longer because it takes longer for that yeast to remove all of those, or to metabolize all of those simple sugars into ethanol. So if we have an 8, 9, 10% alcohol